This is James Lupton for Slothbox, sponsored by the Excelsior Sporting Club. And today I'm joined with trainer Brian Lawerence. Brian, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. Very good. I wanted to go back to the start a little bit. Just tell me your start into boxing and how you got into it.
Oh, it's going back years. I mean, I was amateur boxer at the Repton, went pro. My manager, Harry Griver, had a few pro fights. And then I just went into the training part of it. That was in 81. I was working with a black manager, Billy Winter. And the first fight to come along was James Cook. So I was training James, trained him enough all his career. And he joined Mickey Duff near the end of his career, where they sent me over Akinwande to train Henry Akinwande. So I trained him. He won Commonwealth European title. Then I was in America with him because he joined Don King. So I was out there for 2 years training him. We was on the undercard when Mike Tyson was fighting. So we was like moving around with them. It was like a circus, really. 2 years traveling from here and there, you know.
That's
Then when I come back, when I come back to England, I took out a manager's license, and then I started to train. I had quite a few fighters. I had Harry Senior, Alan Gray, Ian Napa. I was his manager and trainer. Eric Cheng, and there's quite a lot more.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Too many to mention, yeah.
No, absolutely. So just
Mm.
go back to that beginning. But when you came into the training role, how long
Mm.
did you want to do that? Is it something that you'd always wanted to do whilst you was an amateur? And
Not really. It was the guy who knew me, Billy Winter. He was a black manager. There wasn't black managers around at that time, but he asked me to come and help him train his fighters. You know, and I had a young family and I was working and everything, and I thought why not? So because I was a licensed fighter, and the board knew me already, so I put in for a trainer's license. It was just a quick interview. It lasted about 5 minutes, and I was, but everybody then times in boxing, well, it was all boxing people, so everybody knew each other anyway. Because then back in then, all the trainers, they were like proper trainers. They'd all been in the game, all ex-fighters, you know. So it was like that when I started out. I mean, boxing was totally different then anyway. It was a real hard sport. Yeah, even like journeyman, there was no journeyman around at them times. There was no easy fights for fighters. You had to be out of fight to be a professional boxer in them days.
definitely, and
Mm.
it's a good point you make there. Because I mean, I was going to mention obviously James Cook. You've already mentioned as well.
Mm.
A great career James Cook had, and you mentioned there
Mm.
were no easy fights, and he took on anybody and everyone. Michael Watson, Harold Graham, Errol
Mm.
Christie. These guys, and they're not easy fights. And see,
No, I know, but he had hard fights from the get-go.
mm,
I mean, his first fight, he fought a guy who was actually sparring with was Mick Courtney. James was a middleweight and Courtney was a light middle, but Courtney that time had about 6 professional fights, and that was his Cook's first fight. And both of us was on a Frank Warren show in the Lyceum, and they weren't supposed to fight each other, but something happened with James' opponent and something happened with Courtney's opponent. So the managers then done a deal; they'll fight each other on the show, and it was just done like that. So that was his first fight against a guy who was 6-0, which he managed to win on points.
what was it
And
like to train James? I'd say a very successful career, successful time you two had together. What was it like to train him?
um, it it was all right. It was. I mean, because he as an amateur, I think he reached the London finals, and so when he turned pro, he was all right. For his first couple of fights, I used to spar with him, even though he was much bigger than me. But yeah, the first couple of fights, I sparred with him, but then he got good very quick, so I stopped that. But yeah, but he had an up and down career though. You know, he was I say he was a bit of a pessimist, James. He weren't like when you got guys like I'll say Ian Napa, Akinwande, because they were like ABA champions and that they had a different mindset to what James had. But James' mindset changed through his career because you know he was a pessimist at first, but then he changed. He had, I think, after the fight with Errol Bomber Graham, his whole demeanor, his whole attitude changed. He had the attitude what I had. Let's go and get them. And yeah, so that fight with Bomber Graham, even though he lost it, kind of turned his career around.
Mm.
And then he moved up to super middle, and then you know he cleaned up the division basically. He was untouchable. One time he was like untouchable.
What was that like to train a fighter who you can visibly see the change in mindset?
Oh, that's good. That's good. That means like all your hard work has actually paid off. You know,
Did
but I like that.
it easier for you? Well, did it in some ways make it easier for you because he's then optimistic rather than being pessimistic?
Yeah, when you've got someone optimistic, if you've got someone who's been a winner in the amateurs and they've been top amateur, their attitude and everything is different when they come into boxing. They expect to win. So it's a different mindset. You know, I've noticed that when I've trained like top amateurs like that, I've not their mindset is different. You know, but it's to get the top ones is a bit, you know, to acquire them is a bit more harder.
What's it like for you as a trainer? How do you try to, when you do bring people like James Cook on, who is a pessimist to start with, how do you, as a trainer, try and instill that confidence into your fighter?
Well, it's more. I'll say he weren't like when the bell goes, he's coming out to fight. He weren't thing like that. Yeah, he's not like that. I mean, I think his outlook towards what he could do.
Mm.
That's more of what I'm saying about him. When it comes to fight, no, he was on it like that because he was like proper prepared for them. You know, we would have proper like good sparring, road work, everything was done. So when every time he went out to fight, he was prepared to fight. You know, the work had been done, and like when you've been sparring and everything and whatever, you're ready to go. In that way, you know, there was no, you know, you'll come to fight, no doubt about that.
No, definitely. You mentioned
Mm.
as well Akinwande, and I'm sure there's some stories from your time in America. You mentioned
Oh,
Don King. Just
yeah.
pick out your funniest and your favourite moments from your travels with Akinwande and Don King promotions.
Well, it's too much about Akinwande, but Akinwande, he used to fight on fear, and this is, I mean, when I first started to train him, I mean, when Mickey Duff sent him to me and Terry Lawless, his first fight with me, it was a European title fight against Axel Schultz. I remember Terry Lawless phoned me up and said, "Brian, listen, I don't know what you're gonna do, but after 3 or 4 rounds, you'll be holding on." He used to win ugly. I just said, "Don't worry, leave it to me. I'll have him ready." You know, so he was with me about I had him about 7 weeks, 8 weeks before the first fight with Axel Schultz, where I took him on our runs, what we used to do and everything. I took him to hell and back actually. And when we went over to Germany, he got a draw, but he actually won the fight. Everybody had him winning it by a round or a couple of rounds, but he got a draw. You know, where Mickey Duff actually said that half a robbery is better than the full. But I'll give you this: when we went over to Germany, their matchmaker picked me up and said, "Brian, listen, the tickets ain't really selling for this fight. When you go to the press conference, I want you to jazz it up." And I went in there and I started everything. You know, I said, "Listen, straight away, we only need the referee for the count. The judges, I said, the judges can go on now, they won't be needed. We just need the referee for the count. And I'm saying, like, Schultz, what's he done? Let's start talking about Akinwande, because Lennox Lewis had give up the European belt then. That's why that Schultz and Akinwande were fighting for the vacant title. So I was telling them, no, he's better than Lennox and all of that, giving it all of this, you know. No, he's much better than Lennox, he's more dangerous and that. Anyway, so I said he got the draw. And I remember, because Colin Hart was there for the Sun. And I remember on the Sunday, I read the newspaper, he put in it, he don't know what Lewis I was talking about. It must be Jerry Lee Lewis. Yeah, so that's one of the things with Akinwande. But then I remember we went back to Germany in about, he beat Schultz in the return, but we went back there it was about 18 months later, we fought a guy called Mario Schiefer. He was 27-0. And Akinwande knocked him out, I think it was the 7th round, and 14 punches unanswered, and 12 of them were uppercuts. This is how much he's improved. And I remember after that, Colin Hart written in the Sun, Akinwande's ready for Lewis. So I thought, oh yeah. And but he'd been with me in about 18 months. But yeah, to nearly 2 years, yeah. So that's the improvement he had made.
What's that like for you to see that, you know, compliments and other people on the outside and a well-respected journalist in Colin Hart can see the improvements that have been made in the gym by yourself and Henry there?
Yeah, it's good to know. Good to know you know that you've been doing the right things. You know, with like now because I do it just the way I knew, just old school ways. You know,
Mm.
road work, bag work, a lot of sparring. I mean, we give him pad work, but it wasn't the be all and end all. A lot of fighters nowadays, it's just pads, pads, pads. Nah, well, you know, we do use the pads, but it's not the be all and end all, you know. And I
Mm.
think educating a fighter's mind as well,
Mm.
you know, that's so important that they understand the game.
No, definitely. Just before I
Mm,
come to the changes in boxing since you've been in it, just before we leave that topic about Don King, have they got any
mm,
stories about Don King? Did you get to know him at all? He comes across a character, and a lot of people got a lot to say about him. But I just want to get your
mm.
perspective on Don King.
Not as really like that because I've met him quite a few times. He's always been at the shows and that, but not really just like, you know, I don't know him like that, if you know what I mean. Because like I'm the trainer of Akinwande. So it's not like I'm gonna go to lunch with him or things like that. It weren't really like that. But I could say the dealings we had with Akinwande, so I can say that everything he said was in a contract we got. So when you're dealing with someone, you can only talk about your experience with them. And I'm saying with Akinwande, everything was in a contract, you know, was agreed, he got. And he got well looked after by Don King in that respect. You know, so in that respect, I can't say, you know, that he done this or done that with Don King, because I weren't his management. So, you know, but the parts what I knew about, everything was, you know, like was above board.
That's all you can ask for your fighter.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
In terms of, we mentioned there a little bit about the changes in boxing. So from 1981, and you're still training now, 2023. What's been
Mm.
the biggest change or the most shocking change in your opinion in boxing?
Oh, oh, this much. I would say, that's a hard one. To me, I think it's the ticket deals what fighters have to do. I think that's to me, yeah. You know, having because really that's like the fighter's the promoter. I'm doing on the small hall shows where he's got pay the opponent, pay the promotion before he's getting paid himself. So he could actually have a fight where he ain't even going to get paid, or he ends up with 100 quid or something. And I think that to me is the most shockingest thing ever what's happened to boxing.
Is
Because
that
before, with Mickey Duff and with Frank Warren and them guys there, every fighter fought got paid. no matter who it was, everybody got paid. But since they've come in now with the ticket deals and that, to me, that has really spoilt boxing, because a kid now, if he sells a lot of tickets, he's going to fight pure journeyman. So he don't do that kid no good, because he ain't really learning how to fight and whatever. You know, he'll reach a certain level, but it's a fake level. Because when he has a true fight, it most likely will get turned over. You know, so it hasn't really helped nobody. Bar maybe the promoter was putting on the show. But otherwise, in boxing terms, ain't helped the fighters at all. Because now a fight will come and he'll be scared to fight somebody with a winning record, because he knows he can sell tickets and fight these journeymen or a bat, you know, and build up himself and have a fake career. Basically, that's what it is. You know, because if they cross the line and want to fight for British titles or something like that, they usually will come a cropper.
Yeah. No,
You know,
definitely.
before now, you're getting guys with 14 undefeated and fighting for the Southern area. But back in our time, you'd have a guy coming through, maybe 7th or 8th fight, he will fight for the Southern area if he was that good. You know, and Southern area was like the stepping stone for the English title weren't there then. It was a stepping stone for the British title. But to win the Southern area, you had to be quite good. I mean, when Cook won the Southern area, he was undefeated, and he fought T.P. Jenkins, who Danny Mancini was managing. And I think Jenkins had about 9 fights undefeated, and Cook had about 7 fights undefeated, or something like that. That's what their records when they fought for the Southern area. But both top guys. You know, so that's the difference. It makes fighters, when you match up a fighter proper, like Mickey Duff and then back in the day would do, and Ernie Fozzie used to work with Frank Warren before he passed, and them, they would match a fighter to keep bringing them on, not to give them easy fights all the time. You got to give them like proper fights for them to get better, take that step forward.
Definitely. I think with the ticket does as well. I think if you can't
Mm.
get a ticket, we lose a lot of talent as well, a lot of potential in
Oh
guys.
yeah, definitely, yeah.
Talking of, lost talents, I want to mention Darren Sutherland. This is a
Oh,
guy who
yeah.
you work with. Obviously,
Mm.
his death was very much premature. He took his own life. He also had his battles outside of the ring. But this is a
Yeah.
guy who was believed to be one of the finest talents to come out of Ireland
Mm.
at the Olympics. It was unbelievable. Just talking about Darren,
Mm.
working with Darren for that short space of time he did.
Yeah. Oh, Darren was incredible. I mean, he was with me about a year, and yeah, that's when I'm telling you about people's potential and their attitude. Darren was like, he would have been one of the greats. You know, I have no doubt about it. I mean, even when he come over and we started training together, it was like the transformation to amateur to pro was just silky smooth. And I remember on his second pro fight, but when we went over, I went over to Ireland. We had to do a lot of press conferences when they said I was going to train him, and I said to them, "Listen, he's going to look the proper business from the get go." I said that's what I said in their papers out there. He's going to look proper from the get go. And I remember in his second pro fight, I remember he was on Sky, and they had Ricky Hatton was a guest in the studio and comment, and he weren't commentating, but he was analysing the fight after. And what he said about Darren Sullivan, he said Darren looked like a guy who's had 22 professional fights, and that was in his second fight. That's how he was, you know. And like I say, I set him down, everything I showed him, he just took it like that. There was no thing. He just straight away he was, but his improvement was like, just one fight brought him on so much, and the next fight brought him on so much. And I'll give you another incident with him. When he first joined me, we was training at the Real Fight Club, and there was a couple of Cuban guys hanging around who that was over in Ireland, and one of them was a light heavy. I don't know, I can't remember the kid's name. They had a heavyweight and they had like a bantamweight or something. And the light heavy, I don't know if he won a silver medal in the World Games or something like that. He come across, he was in England, he come and sparred with Darren. It was down the Real Fight Club, and they done 6 rounds. And that 6 rounds, that you'd have paid to watch it. This is when he just come over from Ireland and he joined me. He was with me about 2 weeks, and he sparred 6 rounds with a Cuban, and it was like even Stevens, but proper quality sparring. Then I remember that Cuban had linked up with Gerald McCauley, or the one who was commentating.
Glenn.
He was, yeah. He linked up with it. He had something to do with them. And we was training down John Rooney's gym at the time. And I got a call, the Cuban's here, if he can come and spar with Darren. I said, yeah, no problem. So this was about 6 months later. And they all come in the gym. There's a big entourage of them come and that. And I swear, that kid, he lasted 4 rounds with Darren. 4 rounds, the trainer had to pull him out. And that's how quick, for that 6 months, well, Darren was with me, that's how he's changed so much. Yeah, so, yeah, he would have been, proper world class. He'd have won everything.
Probably the biggest or the most talented you've worked with?
Yeah, well, he is. He's most talented. I mean, I've had talented fighters like Ian Napa. Like I said, Cook had talent as well. Akinwande had talent. You know, I've worked with Richard Williams. He was very talented as well. But I say, yeah, Darren, like, he was. But what he'd won as an amateur and all the gold medals he'd won and whatever in different competitions. So I'll say he was the most talented. But the others, they you know, I mean, Napa could have been anything he wanted. You know, he was that good as well.
No, definitely. I want to mention, obviously, Darren took his own life.
Yeah.
So he had his battles with his mental health, and
I mean, that was one of the darkest parts of my life and all. I mean, when that happened, that was horrendous, you know.
They always say, you know, men don't really talk about their feelings and their mental health, and you know, they don't they don't let that come outside of their 4 walls of their own home, really.
Yeah.
Do you ever see anything in Darren that made you think potentially he's not happy, or?
No, with Darren, well, it was the only thing that I'll say with Darren, look, you know, in hindsight, that he always talked about boxing. Like everything was boxing, boxing, boxing. I'm thinking, hold on, you know, we want fighters to be on it, but he was never ever anything else. You know, we he never it was never anything away from boxing, which I did kind of pick up. Think, you know, we want him to be focused, but not that focused. You know, and that's only a little thing I picked up on, but it wasn't nothing major as such, you know. And it's like, because when Darren, he went downhill within a week so fast, it was unbelievable. You know, when the Monday his mum come with him to the gym, you know, down the Peacock gym. I mean, I saw his mum there, and I'm thinking, wow, because when she comes over from Ireland, Frank Maloney brings her over. It was Frank Maloney at that time. Brings, you know, and she just come over. So obviously she knew something was wrong, you know. But and she didn't even I did say it even at the inquest. I said if she'd come over and told us exactly what and what, we could have done something, we could have reacted quicker and done something about it. Because she never disclosed to us about his previous mental problems, what he's had, we didn't know. We was in the dark because Darren, he's university educated. He can hide anything from you. So we wouldn't know nothing about that part of his life. But if she had come and said to us, look, this is the problem, we could have got him proper help straight away. The time, that week, he weren't training that week at all. But we had a meeting with him on a Thursday with Frank Maloney and all that. And other people from Ireland were with us, and it was agreed that we were going to go away for a few weeks in Portugal to train and things like that, you know. But we didn't know about the mental state of him. It's only when Frank Maloney said he's fixing up to Darren to see a woman on the Monday, a psychiatrist who had actually helped him out. He said, if someone can, you know, put this woman can. But apparently he hanged himself on the Sunday.
Right.
So it was like, Yeah, so he had an appointment on the Monday to see this woman, but he hanged himself on the Sunday. So it wasn't, if we had the heads up, it wouldn't. I don't think it would have come to that. It'd have got like proper thing straight away. We would have took him Harley Street straight away. You wouldn't have had to wait for anything. But we didn't know, and Tommy got to grips with it. I think that's why I was so vocal about it. And then the Irish start coming up now and saying, well, they knew because he was in their squad as an amateur. So they knew he had certain kind of problems. You know what I mean? But it was like all hush hush. And I think that's one of the reasons, even the boxing board now, when a fighter has to have a medical, he has to go to his own GP.
Right.
So they can get the history. They can get if there's any mental problems, their GP is going to put it down. You can go to another GP and put in a medical form in it, who don't know you, and then he's just going to look at you how you are and test you and whatever. But you go to your own GP's got your history. So that's one good thing what the board has brought in. So anything like that, you can be out in the open.
You mentioned about in hindsight, and he was all about boxing, nothing else other than boxing. Do you feel that's because boxing may have been an escape for him?
I'm not sure about that. He was so talented, I know that, but when I say I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that part of it because I know he did love the box, and he was that good at it. So I'm not sure if that, because I think, to me, I said, like, to me, he had bipolar.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I think. It weren't official, but I know because my brother's daughter's got bipolar, and it's same like Darren, highly intelligent and everything. And it took the doctors about 4 years to diagnose her.
Right.
Because she's smart. Yeah. She took her a long time to be diagnosed. So, and Darren might, comes to me in that kind of category.
Okay.
So with boxing, I don't know about an escape, but he was so big in it anyway.
No, definitely. Like you say, he's definitely a lost talent and somebody who could have
Yeah.
to whatever he wanted to do.
Yeah.
I want to end the interview on a high and on a happy note. So I want to ask you, what's your best or your favourite memory from your career so far?
I would say there's a few of them. It's usually when we won a big title. It was Napa when he won European title, and Cook when he won the European title over in France, and Richard Williams when he won the IBL world title, and and I'll say even Akinwande when he beat Tony Tucker. That was a big thing for us and all, because Tucker was #1 in the world at the time, and he'd only lost to Tyson and Lennox Lewis, and Akinwande actually beat him easier than them two did. So that was a big thing for us and all.
Definitely.
Yeah, so that's it. Yeah, in boxing, I'll say they're about the biggest highs in boxing.
Fantastic. Well, Brian, I'll leave it there. I want to thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks anyway.
No worries at all. Thanks very much for speaking.
Right then. Take
Cheers.
care. My pleasure. All right. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.